Okay, I call this meeting to order at 6:33 PM. Welcome, everybody. Public input, is there anybody online? Anybody here? Cindy, want to say anything? No? Okay, we'll move on.
I feel like we haven't used the gavel in a really long
I
time.
know. Student report.
Mr.
Suchi
Buckley?
Shrikant.
Oh.
Yes, go ahead.
The police chief is on the call. I'm not sure if he has anything to share.
Oh,
Oh, Mr. Zimmerman, Chief Zimmerman. Or is he gonna Zoom bomb us?
He may be just monitoring.
Okay.
I wasn't aware that he was
There we
doing
go.
it. Just giving him a chance, yeah.
Okay, Suchi, you wanna give your student report?
Sure. So for our notable fine arts, Maskers competes this weekend at Franklin High School with their production of Much Ado About Nothing. And there's also a public showing of Much Ado About Nothing on Thursday. Notorious is performing at Mechanics Hall in Worcester on March 24th. And Winter Percussion competes on March 16th and March 30th. Registration is now open for spring sports and is due on March 8th. The season starts on the 18th. For our other category, Random Acts of Kindness Week is kind of spilling over into this week, which is where all teachers have been given kindness bucks so they can give it to students who do kind acts or are all around good students. February break just ended and we're back. And there's also a new Power Block pilot program being implemented for juniors and seniors. And basically that is where juniors and seniors can go to different places around the school that are being monitored by teachers instead of just their like normal Power Block.
What do you do when you go there?
There's a bunch of different options, and this is on Thursdays and Fridays. So you can go to the fitness center, gym, aux gym, media center, and then the DLL. And then there's also like quiet study rooms if like you actually have work to get done. But the rest of the spaces are pretty collaborative. And I'm pretty sure that you can get gym hours if you're like in the gym or fitness center by tracking what you do there. So that's a good advantage of that time and space. For my student project, I have my chores report from my APEL class, which is it's basically an acronym for current events, history, outside knowledge, reading, experience or personal experience, and then science, which is what Ms. Debrio and probably other members of the English department have come up with to help with our argument essays, which is where we kind of have to generate an argument based like using our own knowledge. So it's just kind of to expand our knowledge bank. She had us do this project. And we are also doing a nonfiction book study right now. And the book that I chose is kind of like a memoir focusing on feminism. So I just chose to do like a theme of like women's history and, you know, just stories, which, you know, not everybody had to do that, but I just chose to do it. So this is my project. And then you just basically do like some information and research with sources. My current events was about Ruby Franke, who's a family influencer who's been arrested and now I think convicted for child abuse. My history was about how sexual harassment, like the term was coined during the women's rights movement. And then part of that was the prevalence of Me Too movement in more recent times. For my outside knowledge, I explored the myth of Medusa. For my reading, which was The Soul of a Woman by Isabel Allende, that's the memoir that I'm just choosing for my nonfiction book study. For my experience, I talked about the prevalence of breast cancer because many women in my family have either had breast cancer or passed away from breast cancer, and it's definitely very close and personal to my family. And then for science, I talked about the UNESCO L'Oreal International Women's Science Awards, and then I focused on a specific scientist who was an embryologist, and I talked about her work. And then, yeah.
wow,
Good.
that's it. Very
Wow.
impressive.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay,
I know, we're all.
question.
I did not do anything nearly as rewarding this last bunch of weeks, so that's phenomenal.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One, you said gym hours. Are gym hours for varsity athletes? Is that, or is it for graduating?
So basically, in your junior and senior year, if you're like not in a fitness in the 21st century, or if you're not in a gym class, you need a certain number of gym hours to be able to graduate. And if you like play a sport already in like part of the school, like that counts as your like basically as your 40 hours.
Yep.
But if you don't, this just provides another opportunity to kind of get those hours in like a monitored fashion.
Okay. And then I heard something about somebody at North Reading winning an award from the National Center for Women in Information Technology. Can you speak at all to that?
Yeah, that was me. So yeah, that's basically I kind of submitted my application and I focused on a lot of the work I've done in computer science, and yeah, and I won an affiliate award for it. So
Congratulations.
Very good.
Are you-
Really embarrassed.
So were you the only award winner in Massachusetts? How was it?
So I think it's not entirely sure how the process works because I'm still like I haven't even gotten the award. There's like
Yeah.
still information coming out about it. So there is like affiliate awards and then there's like regional and kind of national. And yeah, I think that's like there's definitely different criteria for that. So you can get more than one award. An affiliate award I think is just like it's like one of like 7 or something like in the state, and then it's like based on state populations.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
That's awesome.
Congrats.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, continued business. Looks like policy committee needs a little longer to work on the policy second reading, so we will move on to new business. Dr. Downs is here. Dr. Downs. And I do want, as always, an update on the softball game of Superintendent Daly, so.
Off season.
Oh, okay.
Eat too much off season.
Did you give him any, like, off-season work to do, or no?
Hit when you can. Hit when you can. After Christmas, it starts to you start thinking about it.
There you go.
So, thank you for the time tonight to provide, be able to give an update on digital learning initiatives. Now that we're into 2024, it's a good opportunity to be able to come in front of all of you and kind of share the work that we've been, doing and looking to do as we move forward. We got a lot of amazing things done this past year. Just to give kind of an update, overview of these updates, there's the digital learning roles. I want to talk a little bit about that. Technology integration, an update on digital learning, computer science, professional development, digital equity and data privacy, infrastructure projects we've completed, an overview of our help desk with Dave Barber, who I've asked to come tonight and present with me, our support for MCAS CBT, and some digital learning communications, kind of just to give an update on a number of items. And I included our image from the summer of Chromebooks were ready to go out the door. So we're always very proud of the one-to-one program as well. So just to kind of give an update on like kind of how, digital learning's changed a lot. It's kind of like a, very robust process each year. Each year we start with, updating our school websites and updating our staff data, ensuring accessibility to our website and make sure everything's up to date. Updating hardware, software, and performing upgrades on labs, technology devices around the building. Just making sure everything's in a good place, the network. We start the year, we kick off, we do a comprehensive review of everything to make sure it's in a good place, and also review any potential cybersecurity issues with updates to our network kind of before the year starts. Throughout the year, the team's grown in terms of support and integration. We have a focus on supporting day-to-day needs of our educators and teachers around the building. This includes supporting tech tickets, planning professional development, coordinating special events, also trying to provide the most seamless experience for students and educators throughout the course of the day, and also providing prompt service, just making sure everyone's up and running, keeping everyone, going efficiently. We close the year, we transition departing data with staff, emails and devices of staff devices, updating inventories, and we also just make sure our tools and resources are ready for the next year, what we're going to plan on moving forward with. And these are changing forever, you know, on and on. So I just wanted to kind of give this kind of overview, as this has really been an opportunity to kind of show our year start to year close, kind of the things that we're kind of currently doing, you know, as we start the year, always throughout the year, and then also at the end of the year, kind of making sure everything comes to a close in an efficient way. Another reason why I also wanted to kind of incorporate the help desk work into tonight's presentation, because I think that's a big part of all of these phases.
I have two quick questions, if you don't
Yep.
mind. Number one, can you give us an idea of volume of like tech tickets that you guys end up getting? Like, I don't know, per week, per month, per quarter, like how many tickets are being put in? Just curious.
I'd say 10 to 15 per
Uh,
day.
Per day?
Yeah, last year we had 1,700 tickets put in the system, but quite often, we don't actually generate a ticket from any of the student requests and
Right.
staff requests, because it's hard to narrow down what some of the items are. They
Mhm.
just show up and say, can you help us with this?
Okay.
So
Right.
sometimes, you know, a password reset is an instant thing, we don't put in a ticket for that.
I would say we get probably on average five, you know, anywhere from 2 to 10 tickets a day. You know, like, it's a pretty broad range. A lot of those issues are either resolved through the help desk, someone coming down directly, or us going to a classroom directly. So it's anywhere probably like that range of 2 to, you know, 5 or 10 per day. And then, they're all a wide range of issues, anything from connectivity, if there's an issue in the building, we try to address that. But great closure rate, we don't leave anything open,
Yeah.
we're always kind of following up on everything and making sure everything's accounted for.
And I think the broader question, just, I know in we put in a request for capital items through the town every year, and I know that upgrades to some of the Wi-Fi structures at some of the schools are on there. Can you speak a little bit about like, sort of like where we're at? Like, is everything operational right now? Is it just sort of going forward for some of the new
Yep, so
new
the,
devices? Yeah.
I have that in the presentation.
Okay.
We are fully with our wireless project, the upgrades completely finished with the middle school, high school.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep. So central to our mission, you know, we do still incorporate integration, coaching, and professional development into our model with our specialists and our support. Key strategic parts of our integration plan is, you know, providing them with for educators to have goal banks to work with integrating technology into the classroom efficiently and effectively with the support of a digital learning specialist. Also, we work very proactively with new and existing staff to update them and bring them into the district and have them understand the technology that they're gonna use from the beginning of the year, or if they're shifting a role. That's a big part of our work in the beginning of the year with new teachers, bringing them up to date, letting them know what we have, bringing them into our system, making sure that they're aware of what we have available, whether it's through the new teacher, and then also continued professional development to kind of support them moving forward. We have the NRPS core apps, which is a group of core applications selected, you know, within our team. We've utilized them and vetted them for privacy, so it creates essentially a streamlined experience for the educator and the teacher. The educator and the student to kind of connect with apps, know that they're approved for privacy, use them for a wide range of instruction, digital assessment, and also classroom analysis of data. So leading off, a new teacher comes in, we're able to give them basically a suite of applications that we've approved for privacy. We provide, you know, robust training on them here. These are some great things to kind of get started with, which I really think helps the onboarding process with educators as they start with using technology in the district. Within the computer science and digital learning departments, we're currently utilizing student data from the midpoint of our year from our K-12 Common Assessment. At the most recent professional development day last month, educators worked to identify strategies to help support students' growth across all areas of DESE's digital learning and computer science K-12 standards. In digital learning and computer science, we're committed to offering a curriculum that includes both assessments, data-driven instructional strategies, and these mid-year review allows us to plan effectively, ensuring our students are gonna be successful in that area. You know, and that's been an amazing process, being able to put a common assessment together, looking K-12. We're just at the beginning phases of getting data that we feel like is meaningful, and also allowing us to review how that data is gonna grow over time with modifying instructional strategies with the teachers. So this year, I've highlighted professional development opportunities that focus on emerging technologies such as AI and VR. These sessions are not only about understanding these technologies, but how they can be integrated into our teaching and enhance our learning outcomes. During the course of the year, I've introduced resources to support AI best practices for educators and also curated a wide range of videos, research, and professional development opportunities to support continued best practices using AI. So early on in the fall, I put together an AI best practices document for educators to review, look at, be thoughtful around their use of AI. There are currently no approved tools used within the district for students to use, but I am well aware, it's a tool to improve the workflow of educators in their own workflow, so I'm encouraging them to explore, but explore it carefully and also be considerate about their application of AI in terms of creating materials. It's very important for me to inform, educate, and inspire people around these resources. I'm particularly even excited about, how AI will change things. AR, VR is something that we're always looking to kind of bring more of into the district as much as we can. Reaffirm our kind of commitment to privacy and cybersecurity, and also introduce the topic of data equity. I'm also providing the videos and resources from the professional development and leadership through my digital learning newsletter. So the topics of AI, AR, VR, data privacy, and cybersecurity are provided, pretty much almost about every 2 weeks. I put out a newsletter over the last 3 or 4 months just to kind of keep them updated. It's a personal goal of mine to get them to kind of engage with the content as much as I can, just to educate them and keep them informed of the changes coming in this area. So what I've included on this, and you can check it out on your own, is, I have the I best practices document. And one thing is, I just have an example that I sent out to the teachers about, this is earlier in the year, just an example of using ChatGPT. I'll skip ahead to about 2:20. And what I'm trying to do with ChatGPT and educators is just encourage them that when they're developing a prompt, to be thoughtful about the use of the prompt, and continue to use, if you're going to use AI in development of a prompt, to be thoughtful about how you create the prompt, what the purpose of the prompt is for, and then also refining the idea effectively. So this prompt is specifically for using ChatGPT and designing a lesson for 6th grade science.
When developing and redeveloping an undergraduate lesson, and I'm going to be very broad here, for a 6th grade or a science.
I must have an echo there.
And what ChatGPT will do is it will generate.
Can you do share this tab?
Kind of a broad base. Now the thing to remember is that as you continue.
Thanks.
I'll skip it. Put up the ad. Lucky me, right?
I always find that YouTube puts the stupidest ads on, like so inappropriate.
Oh, and this isn't even mine. Let me skip
Uh-huh.
that. Yeah, it's.
It's like, know your audience. If my daughter's watching a cooking show, like don't advertise racy stuff. It's like, come on. Anyways, sorry.
No, I have. And here's my
How do you
ad.
control
Allow the
that?
cookies. then.
So what I'm trying to do is, if they're gonna use, oh, this is the wrong video again too. If I'm gonna have them, if they're gonna use AI, why does I keep hitting play? Way back. There we go. I'm just trying to click up the timeline.
Yep.
So if they're gonna use AI, and I can kind of even turn the volume down if the echo is kind of getting at us, is to use AI thoughtfully and to think about, so what should I consider when designing a 6th grade science lesson? So this is talking specifically about different types of activities. I just skipped past again. Let me get this straight. Let me get my audio going.
You want to hit that button, yeah, not to skip ahead.
Did I lower it? So this is producing a broad base of different types of activities, and I'm pushing, and I added actually like a translation at the top, giving you, so for example, they've given me learning objectives around 6th grade science according to a specific standards. It's providing, technology integration suggestions. It's providing storytelling suggestions, types of differentiated instruction assessments, clear instructions, engaging openers and closing. So AI, of course, is going to give you a ton of information, right? So what I'm trying to encourage educators to do is, as they're using AI, is to use it thoughtfully and use it for pushing prompts further. So essentially, if you're designing a sixth grade science class, lesson for science, can you help it design, more inquiry-based activities? And that's what I'm doing.
Sorry, I see what you mean.
Pushing it for more inquiry-based, more activity-based. Use the AI to provide ideas, but don't allow it to, just create a very flat lesson for you. You're pushing it, you're asking it for prompts, you're trying to get it to be more engaging in areas that you really want to focus the instruction in on. Because I think the worst thing about AI is just putting in something basic and just taking what you get. But I think AI can be very powerful if, for example, I'm taking, this science standard here, and I'm gonna ask for a connection to this very specific science standard, and then generate a prompt based off that science standard specifically. But I think that's where educators need to be kind of pushed with the use of AI, is that it's just not a tool for pushing out content. It's actually can be a very powerful tool for differentiating instruction and finding very personalized approaches, especially with diverse learners. You can, and that's what I found when running a PD in the fall. Many teachers were very intrigued by it, and I also found that some of them had limited experience with ChatGPT, which I was a little surprised by. So I just wanted to make sure that if they were going to start using it, they started thinking about the thoughtfulness and the level in which they were going to be beginning using it with, because I think that's the thing to kind of focus your energy on. And so based on the concept of more engagement provided in the response, please provide the example activities. So I'm pushing it for a list of activities, maybe a specific part of a lesson. So I think this is going to be a big piece of teaching with AI, is just getting people to be more critical thinking around how they use it.
So I have some questions on AI since we're here.
Yeah.
And I just feel like since we're bringing it up, we should fully comment on this, because we've talked about it a little bit on the student usage. And so I guess the very first thing I would just for the record to clarify, so teachers wouldn't be ever using this for grading or any of that piece. This would only be for instruction, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, right now, we're not using any applications in district or have suggested the use of any application in district that are approved for privacy with the use of students. So if it included any student data, it shouldn't be being used.
But I would I mean, it depends on what you mean by
Shifting
that,
and changing
right?
quickly.
I mean, if they're using Google Forms to correct tests, that's using AI to, right? So I mean, I think we're using it a lot in different ways. We're using autocomplete, we're using spell check,
Yeah.
right? So I wouldn't say we're not doing it. I think we're being very careful and cautious with how we roll it out. We're not purchasing or promoting anything that's like doing that, but
And it will eventually make its way into everyday education. It just needs to be done thoughtfully, where, it's gonna be used for more adaptive learning and personalized approaches and adaptive instruction to meet very specific student needs. It's just not at the stage where we've adopted any platforms where we said, the data privacy is a big piece of it, and also just being sure that if we decide to use something and go with it, that it's approved for privacy. And the information I'm getting around majority of apps is they are not approved for privacy, so I've kind of just hit the brakes on that. But I do believe educators need to experience it to the level where they know what they're using. They've kind of had an experience with AI where they can recognize the power of it, also recognize if their students might be using it, and just be more aware of the best practices around it. And also, if they're going to use it in a thoughtful way, which kind of, pushes the edge of their own thinking, and also utilizes the language models and adaptability of their own thinking to be, maybe more creative in the classroom, create new types of lessons, and push things even further and more targeted.
Do we have a means of measuring its effectiveness and what it's actually doing? So, and there may not be a scale for this at all, but I know we measure just about everything else we're doing. As we're introducing a new technology like this, and I believe me, this is what I do for a living, I use this stuff a lot. Is there a means of measuring whether it's helping, whether it's hurting, whether it's what the impact is?
I think if definitely we're going to be using it with students on any level, if we were to choose a platform or anything that would be an assessment tool, I think you definitely have to have, baked in measures.
But even with
Educator.
teachers, right? Like, is it saving them time? Is it putting, you know, what is the benefit what is the tangible benefit, what is the measurable benefit even they're getting? Again, I'm not expecting we're necessarily gonna have answers right now, but I think it's something to start thinking about, as with anything we introduce.
Dr. Daly?
I just want to say, so part of what, we have goals in our district plan to address this, and there's sort of different angles of that Dr. Downs is looking at. The professional development is a piece of it, the conversations we're having, and I think that will lead to some kind of a, you know, at the very least, just measuring, especially in year one, who's using it, how often, and then those questions too, like what are some of those best practices? You know, Dr. Downs and I have talked a lot about policy pieces, and different universities, you know, have taken different approaches. Some did sort of a ban, you know, most didn't. Most did how are we going to use this and what are we going to do? But that is a part of it. We want to know what's being used, how it's being used. We had a few teachers that were very excited to present on this as well. So it's coming from the administration, but we've also had a few teachers that have shared and run some teacher-driven workshops for teachers as well. So at those workshops, we're also collecting best practices and examples of how things are making their jobs different.
And teachers are, I mean, there's teachers even before we kind of put it into the professional development who were very excited, you know, about using it.
Oh, yeah.
And then I also had teachers who had never tried it ever before.
Yep.
So.
And then,
yeah.
if I could, there were teachers that their primary concern was kids using it and cheating, right? And then I'm stepping back and saying, okay, but what are the ethics of a teacher using it? As I think we're getting at here, like if we're paying a teacher to lesson plan and curriculum design and they're using a computer to do that, is that the same thing? But then it's more like, but if you're using it as a tool, as Dr. Downs is showing. So that's really the approach we're taking, is to show, you know, like with any tool, how can we use it to make what we do better and more efficient?
And also with any piece of technology, like I kind of feel it essential to my role to model more effective use of it, especially if I know it's being used or I believe it's being used robustly. Like if it's something we're going to end up dealing with on some level or another, no matter what, I think we have to like always stay on the more critical thinking side of like what's the best way to use it. You know, because I know they're using it. If the people are going to be using it, let's think about what are the best ways to be using it. You know, to create better materials. Yes, there may be some time savings and workflows, but at the end of the day, like if you were going to have a tool that's very, very powerful and going to make better lessons or create more interactive experiences for students or whatever you can do, let's do it the best we can. You know what I mean? And do it thoughtfully, because these tools are extremely powerful. And they're going to be they're slowly being integrated into essentially every tool that's kind of coming out now. So it's also part of being aware of how it's being integrated, because it's kind of being snaked in a little bit too, into all the new tools that are kind of coming into the ed tech world.
So I guess I'm a little confused about how broadly and deeply you're introducing this to the faculty, or can you
So what
give
I've been
clarity on that?
Yeah, so what I've tried to do this year is with these topics of AI, VR, digital equity, and cybersecurity, is essentially, you know, when we have a professional development day, provide something that is an informational yet hands-on little bit of a session to kind of get them to understand what tools are out there, what are available, and what's approved for privacy, and how they work, you know, because there are people who have some experience with it, but I wouldn't want them to understand that, like, we have no say on it, or we're not, like, kind of communicating anything at all about how to use it more effectively if it's out there. And there's definitely ways of using it effectively in some ways to kind of create some better products if you are thinking about doing that. But there's also, I would hate to see a teacher who has limited experience using it, then experiment with it, then like it, but then not necessarily understand the power of it. And also not have the opportunity to experiment with it in a kind of a supported environment as well. So I've kind of taken that on as my role, is when we have a professional development day, putting a presentation together, discussing the pros and cons, where we stand on it with the use of students, where we stand on it with the use of teachers, and what we're thinking as a district vision for the use of it. But then there's also, I'm doing further investigations for people to be able, if they want to learn more about it and learn more about where I'm at with it, they can attend my PDs and kind of go a little bit deeper.
I was going to say, so, just quick, so it isn't necessarily that everyone's gonna see those presentations.
Right.
You're doing it as a choice during professional development.
Right.
Yeah, I was just gonna clarify, I would say we're staying ahead of the early adopters and working
Okay.
with that group.
Yep.
It's available to everyone, but it's not something that's on the front burner for every educator.
Right.
There's some people that this is way down the road for where they wanna be, but it's out there. And the professional development and the newsletters that he's putting out, are on demand, so people could watch that video that you just saw at their own pace, at their own time.
Right.
But
And
there's not an
interest level,
expectation
yeah.
that everyone's doing it right now, but it is there for those that do, because we definitely don't want people going into the Wild West without some guidance from the district. So that's sort of our approach right now.
Right. And what I've noticed across a lot of districts is, you know, they're all kind of operating at different levels of speeds towards addressing AI. Like some are jumping way out and some are kind of hesitant to kind of say anything at all, and then some are kind of somewhere in the middle too. So, I think I think we're being proactive enough to kind of have the best practices and also inform educators that, there are proper ways to begin thinking about this as opposed to, thinking you're doing it, in your own silo. Like this is something that, is gonna impact education in a big way in the next, several years, no matter what. So let's just think about how to do it thoughtfully to start.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Daly knows where I was going, but I won't go too far down there, but just, I feel like from the student usage, it's just been a blanket, don't use. I'm just wondering if that's the long term, or if there are some applications in the future where, even if it was like how to design an experiment or whatever, like we saw a statistics presentation a couple
Yeah,
meetings before. where-
most of the
yeah.
research that supports the use of AI with students is the student-centered classroom, where a teacher would provide like a prompt to a student to kind of do their own independent path. But we're not at the point where we have platforms or instructional strategies that teachers are aware of where they could put that into place. But that's probably where most of this is going, is you'll have a group of students and they'll have some of their own independent learning experiences driven from central concepts of the teacher, but prompts that are encouraging them to kind of go deeper on their own, through the language models, just of their own interests.
Dr. Daly?
As I say, we did introduce some updated handbook language, I think you saw last summer about this. It doesn't prohibit it. What Dr. Dowd is referring to is some of these tools that have to actually sign the data privacy agreement.
Right.
But like I said, EasyBib, Google, like, there's a lot of things that are built into systems that we do use that incorporate it, and so the handbook language speaks to best practice, not used to misrepresent your own work, all those things. Those are those concerns, but we absolutely are gonna use this with students because it's out there. They're gonna be using it every day for things they do. And especially at high school, we want them to learn those ethical practices as well, so.
Right, it's
There's a
very-
lot
There's a
cutting
lot,
edge.
yeah. It's-
Well, it's way beyond me. I'm one of those people that has never used ChatGPT, so I'm maybe
Hence-
the only one up here.
Hence the lack of laptop in front of you.
Correct.
So my kind of piece with this is just really with these areas, getting them more embedded into the psyche of educators, knowing that they're important, getting a piece of their attention, and each month kind of providing more and more information to those who want to kind of go deeper with it, get them involved, and let them know, especially on the data privacy and cybersecurity. That's something that, sometimes they have to find an extra part of their day for, and, kind of beginning next with digital equity. So I have some outlines there, you can, visit on your own, but that's kind of the vision for that piece. So, with data privacy, cybersecurity, and digital equity, we remain forefront with our priorities. We're consistently looking at our policies and practices related to working with our educational community around educating them with data privacy. We're going to have the upcoming webinar on March 11th to detail these efforts. Our digital equity initiatives also ensure that every student have the tools they need to succeed. So, we're doing really great on providing devices, providing resources for students. I'm essentially bringing digital equity to the table just to make sure that we're on the forefront of that. Like, we're aware of the benefits of doing that, but also knowing how nuanced digital equity can kind of become over time. because ultimately it is becoming a topic that is mentioned as it's more than just giving every student a device. It's becoming more about equitable access for different types of resources, different kind of culturally relevant content, accessible content, instructional practices. It's actually a really deep topic. So I do participate on a DESE working group for defining digital equity in the state of Massachusetts. We're currently identifying strategies for addressing measures for adequate digital equity in schools. Additionally, on the Digital Learning Advisory Council, we continue to review the topic of digital equity within the context of other digital learning initiatives. So it's quickly become a topic that most states are really trying to jump on top of and make sure that they have a plan for. And I do believe it was required by every state to have a digital equity plan within a year. So that's coming down the road for every state. I have been encouraging educators to provide me feedback with their perceptions around digital equity and what they feel is essential as it relates to digital equity. That's been something that I've been just kind of starting with them on. I do want to encourage them to think about what does their classroom look like with certain tools and how they're being used and the value of those tools that they use each day. And essentially, I'm kind of also including that as part of my PD. You know, so upcoming, we have the parent webinar on the data privacy, and then we also have, I've been kind of reaching out to staff on their perception of digital equity, and also working on a walkthrough tool that I'd like to utilize within the year to kind of basically look at how well are we being equitable with our digital resources from classroom, school, to the district level, and just bring that lens to the table. So here's our infrastructure update. So basically, we did complete at the end of the summer the update for the middle school, high school wireless infrastructure. So that's fully operational. You know, that project went successfully. Office spaces as well had updates to APs as well as classrooms. We've also upgraded the PC updates for the business office and school office personnel to support the upgrade for security updates on those devices with Windows 11. And we'll also review of options for interactive technology at the middle school, high school within the next coming, within this coming year. We also have updates to the guest access of the wireless network. I'll let Dave Barber speak a little bit to that in a moment. But those are the big projects that we kind of, closed the end of the summer with, rolled into the school year with, and then completed during the beginning part of this year.
So on the updates, is it contractors that we bring in that we pay for, or is there anybody in district or in the town that we use?
With these updates?
Yeah, are these all contractors outside that we?
So the wireless infrastructure update is through contractors.
Yeah.
The PC upgrades we do ourselves. It's a lot of, going into office, finding the best time, updating a PC, switching them out, backing up the device, providing them a new device. We've been reviewing interactive technology for the past year and a half and looking at options that could work here efficiently, based on the environment, based on kind of current needs, usage, what classrooms could potentially really benefit from. We've implemented one of our potential options into the art room, into Jessie O'Brien's room. She's been piloting that use of that board during the past year. And then updates to our guest access desk that works through our department as well. We've been doing that work ourselves.
Yeah, I'm just always curious because we think about the district, but also there's all the different town buildings, and they all have to update their Wi-Fi eventually. And I just wonder, as a town, if there's a better way if we even, hired a contractor that just handled all the buildings. It's not, again, not a discussion for today, but I'm just curious because we pay a lot for that, and if you had somebody that you just,
they're on different
they could do.
timetables sometimes
Yeah.
too, like that's the challenge. Like this PC upgrade was one that it didn't sneak up on us, but it was something that we knew we needed to do.
Yeah.
And we kind of had to allocate kind of specific funds to kind of just take care of that, as we knew it was on the forefront, to take care of those devices, because those business office and office devices are essential to, day-to-day operations. So they really need to be upgraded for support security with Windows 11. But it all depends on the age of the devices, whether or not you could do something strategically across multiple buildings.
Dr. Taylor?
So just to clarify, the Wi-Fi in this building was 10 years old. That was updated. The elementary schools, we did a couple of years later, so that is
2017,
in the
yeah.
capital plan over the next
Right.
couple of years.
Yep.
To update that. And it involves I mean, definitely need an outside contractor just for the, and it's usually we're buying the hardware, and then they're also providing the installation as a part of that
Yeah.
piece.
And depending on the need, like this time, we took several rounds to determine that the internal wiring was good for 10 years here before we decided that we just needed to update the APs, which is a considerable difference in cost. So, but at the elementaries, when we did that project 2016, 17, that project, we had to rip everything out and
Yeah.
update it completely. So, leading into the help desk, these, digital learning and technology support help desk, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see in the library and media center here in the middle school, high school, we have this centralized help desk. It's tremendously beneficial for a wide range of purposes, having a centralized help desk in the district. It not only does it help us with our yearly projects, like some of those projects I just discussed around updating devices, our one-to-one device rollouts, our teacher and student support for devices, data support, MCAS support. Staff can go in there, students can go in there any time of day, get support with the devices. My team can also leave that space and go to a classroom of that space. We have a dedicated phone line to that space in case someone wants to call from another school, be able to get someone on the line immediately, talk about an issue or explain an issue. That's great for me because if I put an email out around, hey, put a ticket because there's an issue, like instead of waiting on a ticket, if it's something of priority, just call, you're gonna get some service. So being able to have that kind of centralized approach to support around the district's been tremendously beneficial. So I've asked, Dave Barber, who is our assistant network admin, to speak to a little bit of what a day at the help desk looks like. So thank you, Dave.
Hello.
So just to start with, Dr. Downs talked about updates to our Wi-Fi, and this is something we've rolled out, just kind of pass these out, is we went out before for like a guest access, people had to sign in directly, and so they'd have to come to someone and get a password to sign in, and things like that. Absolutely, please sign in. One of the big issues we have with, when we make a change to the Wi-Fi is we have to make sure that students aren't going to use that to access something they shouldn't. So, we can't simply just make a few clicks and say, oh, there we go, we've made a change. We have to ensure that we're not gonna have any issues with that. So, this took a while to come out with, but no more sign-ins or logins for the guest access. It's now just a QR code, and we're starting to post them at, with the front desk for the high school, the middle school, and they should just be able to sign in and connect to the Wi-Fi that way.
Very good.
So as Dr. Downs pointed out, our help desk is in the media center. It's a corner by the high school front entrance. It is a great place that we've kind of been able to centralize everything for our staff and students to come to us for help. We have storage for spare parts, devices, and work tables for equipment repair. Overall, we support 2,700 Chromebooks, 300 laptops, 250 desktops, 100 smart boards, 100 projectors, printers, 300 office phones, all at the help desk, as well as several hundred pieces of software. So we use a ticketing system called Incident IQ, and it's geared towards schools, and it's both an asset management and a ticketing system. So last year we had 1,700 tickets, but that doesn't count all the various drop-ins that we get. Students, many times staff or students just come to us and say, I have a problem, I don't know what it is. How can we help you? And so we'll just sit and work with a student, whether it's just a quick, oh, you've turned off your microphone, that's why you can't be heard on a Google Meet, or it's something more serious. Sometimes those things just don't generate a ticket because it's hard to narrow down in a software system what exactly the issue was. So in general, we see 50 to 75 staff or students every day at the help desk. It is a constant flow. Obviously, we get a lot in the mornings, but every 5 or 10 minutes, someone just walks in and says, hey, I need something. Typically, it is students. Students have Chromebooks. They're all one-to-one. They forget their Chromebook, and they forget to charge their Chromebook. And it is a constant daily task to provide them with a Chromebook that they've forgotten. So we have 30 day loaners at the desk, and these are meant for just that day you're going to borrow a Chromebook. Their charger doesn't work with that Chromebook just for that day, and sometimes it's they're gonna come in for an hour while they charge their Chromebook. We have charging capacity there at the help desk, and they're gonna borrow a loaner for a period or two. Or it's, the student has really forgotten their Chromebook and they need it for the day. We do, as I said, we do give out all 30 loaners every day, and that's part of those 50 to 75 people coming in is the loaners. We also have 100 long-term loaners, and these are meant for when a student's device is heavily damaged and we've got to repair it. So the student needs a device for class, we're gonna give them a long-term loaner while we work on or repair their actual device. So in fact, right now, we have 80 devices that are currently under repair, and the students have those long-term loaners. So we can fix Chromebooks at the help desk. We do it a lot. Every day we take apart half a dozen different Chromebooks to reinsert cables or to make sure their keyboard or trackpad are working. But quite often, the repairs are going to be more extensive than what we can do. Parts for Chromebooks, they're modular, but they're expensive. It's $20 for a replacement screen, it's $80 for a replacement keyboard. So we encourage students to look at the insurance. It runs about $25 a year for full coverage, and they cover everything, which is great when a student drops a Chromebook down a set of stairs. If you ever walk through the middle school, you'll be shocked at the number of times you hear the thump of a Chromebook falling on the floor. It happens so often, the students don't even realize, they'll come to us and say, I don't know what's happened. It's like, I just watched you drop the Chromebook. Oh, did I do that? It's just a constant. Right now we have about 1,000 devices covered under this insurance policy with Worth.
Wow.
Last year we had 460 insurance claims. And so these are ones that have to be, claim has to be filed, we have to ship them out, they have to be repaired, they have to be shipped back, we have to test them to make sure they actually repaired everything, and then get it back to the student's hands.
I have a real question about
Sure.
for the insurance company's underwriters. That doesn't seem like a moneymaker to them, but
Well, if you
guess it's not our problem. but
It's
I'm
not
just
our
saying.
problem, but if you buy the parts in bulk,
Yeah.
we pay retail price, which is, it's just a lot, but we do question that sometimes too, and we have a 50% rate of insurance claims basically every year. It takes about a month to get a Chromebook back for 50% of them. The other 50% can take up to 6 months to get back. A big issue is always that they simply are having part shortages. We go through 30 or 40 motherboards replacements for our Chromebooks, and they take a long time to come in. So that's why we have such a large loaner fleet in order to give, but at the same point, we have to manage all those extra Chromebooks.
I was, just on insurance, I will say, maybe I'm just stupid, and everybody knows up here I am. I bought it twice last year because I didn't realize I'd already bought it before. And I don't know if there's a way to track just to know if you're already insured or not.
Yeah, we put it out.
But somehow I screwed it up because kindly enough, you guys gave me the money back and you said you already bought it, so here's your check back. But yeah, I didn't realize it, but I don't know how you even track that. Could you sign in and see if your kid's device is insured or not really?
Not really.
Okay.
The insurance is from Worth, so they only
There are
track
multiple
it.
years for different ones, and that's why
Yes.
it was hard to tell which
Yeah,
one.
Worth only tracks
Yeah.
it by serial number of the device. So there's no name attached from their end. We have to take their information and move it into Instant IQ and kind of input it by bulk, but it's almost a manual process.
Yeah, we have to track whether or not they're insured in our own internal system.
Yeah.
So while Chromebooks are obviously the largest portion that we deal with on a daily basis for the help desk, we also then support, obviously, educator resources and other staff resources. Staff, they drop their laptops or spill liquids on it too. So with Windows or laptops, we repair them in-house. So we'll order a screen and open it up and repair the screen and give it back to the educator. But at the same point, we have to have a device for them to be able to work with while we fix that device. Although for repairs for laptops, we generally move faster than the month, usually takes about a week to replace something. We also have projector maintenance. There's 100 projectors in the middle school and high school, so every week we're replacing a bulb on a projector as they wear out. Website changes, start of the year, there's staff turnover, so there's always changes to the website where people are. Software installations in the laptops, and then just basic classroom support. There's speakers, there's a lot of things that are in the classroom that can go wrong, and an educator might just not know what setting to click. And so a 5-minute task to fix something so suddenly their speakers are working for them. Other items we work with are the student data privacy. An educator may come to us and say, hey, I've got this great resource, can I use it? Well, we have to see whether they comply with student data privacy laws. And so we have to research that resource. We have to find out whether it's acceptable, and if it isn't, kind of find an alternative for that educator and direct them there so that they can have something to use that is compliant with privacy laws. We also have staff and student onboarding and offboarding. Every week you would get a couple students coming into the district or leaving the district. Staff turnover is not as high, but they do come and go as well.
And I would add to that, it's more than just them coming in, it's also making sure that they get access to the resources that their teacher in a specific class is gonna have. So that's a big part of making sure that the data is correct, and, the team does a great job of that, making sure the back end data is correct, so that when that student sits in the classroom, they're accessing the resources that teacher wants them to access.
And the textbook that's assigned to them for that grade, and
Yeah.
because everything now is digital and connected to an
I have a
account.
question that sort of relates to that, but I'm just imagining a student coming into the district who has, we're going back to the digital equity, that has low, use, and maybe they haven't used a Chromebook before, maybe they haven't accessed Google Classroom before. What's in place? Is that through you for training? Are there opportunities to train students?
So there are some.
In understanding, because I'm just picturing a 7th grader, I have a 7th grader, that's why it's easier to picture one, coming in to a classroom where there's a huge reliance on Google Classroom, and that student not understanding, where do I go to find this? And missing assignments, and, it's snowballing, and whose responsibility is it to teach the student how to access all of this information? Is it the classroom teacher? Is it you guys? Is it a combination?
Bit of both. I would say, we definitely are available, to give.
And who's advocating for that student?
Generally, the teacher will send students to the help desk
Okay.
for specific questions. I know we've gotten those types of questions, like, can they help them do this?
Mhm.
And often, that's usually only if maybe the teacher feels like we're gonna do that piece better than maybe they do themselves. Most teachers, with the resources they're using in the classroom, are very confident with what they're asking the student to do. So I think they are spending maybe extra time with that student, making sure that they access the resource the right way. But that's a good question.
Yeah, and almost any use of in terms of the equity, like a digital ombudsman or something to help, connect, because maybe the kid is afraid to ask the teacher, I don't understand
Yeah.
this.
The teacher can always send them to us too. I
Yeah.
think we've had students sent down for a wide
Okay.
range of reasons that I've personally seen, like access, or they couldn't access something and they needed help accessing something. I see that a lot. And that could be a permissions issue, that could be another issue, but, they can always send them to us. I think the teachers feel like they can always ask us to if
Okay.
a student needs something extra.
Yeah.
Really?
And just to remember too, there's the digital learning specialists who are the teachers as well. So there's the classroom teacher. So at the elementary school, they do a lot of lessons because they're all learning it
Yeah.
and how to use it. So that happens. And then at the help desk, I don't know if you're going to get to this as well, but Dave and other that are on the technician side are great in conversing. But then there's also digital learning specialists who fill in there on some blocks too. So you've got educators there as well.
Yeah.
Although these guys are excellent.
No,
educators as well.
just the sense I'm getting is you guys are great, right? And maybe I just want to make sure that my question was, how do students who have a need know that you're great? Know that they can go to you beyond just for I forgot to charge my Chromebook. That's all I'm asking.
So when a student comes into the district, because I'm the person who kind of deals with this, is that, I have their device, their charger, and all their account information to them. Usually they're brought in by guidance. So, at the start of the year, we do get large numbers, but, they come in with guidance counselors. And so the guidance counselor walks the student to the help desk, and here's their device. And one of the first questions we ask them is, have you ever used a Chromebook before? Because if they say, yes, I've used it in my last class, wherever last school they were at, okay, then I don't necessarily have to take the time to show them some of that information. If they say no, well, okay, then I have to take the time to show them where Google Classroom is, show them how to access their mail. And then I generally direct them to one of our digital learning specialists who is an educator who can work with them, you know, to how to use the Chromebook in the classroom.
Yeah.
I'm not an educator, so
Yeah.
I have a different perspective
Right.
than how they will. So that first question is, it's always, have you ever used a Chromebook before?
Okay, all right.
And also the same with special education. We have very specific requests for special education. You know, the specialists are great not only at the hardware piece of that, but also digital learning specialists are also super helpful. It's like, all right, maybe they're with a special education teacher or in a different classroom type environment, and they need very specific support with something maybe different than that the student has, maybe it needs assistive technology.
Mhm.
We also do that kind of very specific work as well. And often we'll have a special education teacher to come down and say, you know, I'm going to install this very specific piece of software, you know, what's this going to entail? You know, so it can get very, you know, micro in terms of needs,
Mhm.
in terms of level of support. A lot of different things.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
for
and
humoring
Dave,
me.
you touched on this real quickly. You said, I'm not an educator. I was actually curious, what is your background? We haven't seen you before, but what's your background? Like, you come from like private sector that gets hired here, or? I'm
Yeah,
just curious.
I'm IT,
IT.
yeah. So I've worked for about 4 or 5 years now,
Okay,
district. So I'm technology side of it.
okay.
So, but I've, family is educators, my sister and brother-in-law both are educators here at the district.
I'm trying really hard not to go to the SNL, you know, the company's computer guy. Not to date myself, but move. That's what I need in my life. I need one of you to be over my shoulder.
Yeah, if you had ombudsman being brought up today, I'm like, geez.
That was
when?
So
Word challenge each day.
on top of those, the account issues and the new student device, I mean, we also have then staff, it's the same thing. With staff, we not only just have teachers, we also have student teachers, short-term subs, long-term subs, contractors who come in and work at the district. And we have to make sure that, you know, if a contractor comes in who's working with a special education student, they have access to that student's data, but not all the other students in the classroom that they're working with, that they only have access to that, the data that they need. And then, of course, when all these individuals, if they leave for another job, where students leave, is to shut off all their accounts and make sure that their devices have been collected so that we can repurpose that device for another staff or student.
It's a big data ecosystem,
Yes.
in and out, and keep them safe while they're in.
So that's just the basics of the help desk. As the help desk, obviously, Rick Nance has talked about some of the other major projects, and when we're not working on these type of things, we're doing those other projects.
Great.
That's great.
For out-of-district placements, do they have North Reading technology too, or?
That's a whole other, yep, those are follow wax, yep. But they do have North Reading technology, North Reading accounts. And we have to generally set those devices up to that's usually a balancing act. Usually I'll be in an email back and forth with someone at a different, you know, an out-of-district school, around the permissions they need in that building to kind of support our device and things like that, like kind of a back and forth.
Yeah.
It's unique usually, but we get it done.
Nice, thank you.
If I could,
Yeah, Dr.
I
Jeff?
just want to say, you know, another example of what Dave's done. He's done a fantastic job, and I'm so happy that he's here tonight to share with you. This position is one that we've had in the budget for years, this assistant network admin. You know, going back to before Dan was here, it was myself, Nicholas, Randy, and we had one technology for the district, right? Since then, you can see just how this has exploded with the Chromebooks, with everything. We've scaled it up so much. Nicholas also works sort of the earlier shift. Dave's here a little bit in the afternoon because so much, you know, we need Wi-Fi, we need tech support, we need some of these things in the afternoon. He's been able to do that. The two of them together, we did a huge cutover of a new backup system on Friday, so he's here working on that, seeing that through. It's really, these are all positions we can't exist without in 2024.
Yeah, that's clear.
And having, you know, this team there are 2 additional technicians that sort of work under Dave and Nicholas now, that are ESSER positions. So when we talk about all that piece, I just want to keep that in mind. I also want to give a shout out that Dave mentioned, that he does have some relatives that work here, but he has, Dave has helped very much with the theater program, and he plays a lot of different roles beyond, so establishing relationships with kids. I think sometimes you get that feeling of the tech team being behind the curtain, right? But Dave and others have been, at the forefront, not only in his job, but also in some of the extracurriculars too. He's done a great job with that, so I wanted to make sure we acknowledge that. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, you had a question?
No, although actually, I did have one question. One of you mentioned the phone systems in the buildings, and I'm curious what the future of phone systems in the school is.
Well, we're VoIP, and the network supports the VoIP pretty well. Yes, oh, sorry. So, we're VoIP and supports it pretty well. I think our internal infrastructure is fine. I have not noticed any issues per se with the phones across the board consistently. No major issues when we've done updates. They are as old. They're not all as old as the buildings. There's a group of newer phones. Patrick, right? Half the phones in terms of the history of when they got started.
Most are as old as the building. Are you speaking to the landline?
What's that?
The future of landlines in
Yeah,
general?
just in general, that
Yeah.
form of communication around the building. I mean, obviously, people are always gonna need to call into the office or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned 100 phones, and I'm like,
Yeah.
is the future 100 phones, or 10 phones, or is it?
Yeah.
I think, I'll let Patrick speak to, where the district wants to go with like unified communications per se. But,
Right.
I would imagine that anything like that would be aligned with that if there was ever a change.
Yeah, I would say these devices are multiple purpose. They're connected to our intercom system, they're connected to our 911 system, they're
Yep.
connected to a lot of things. There's not a tremendous cell signal in our buildings.
For sure.
And so I would say that landlines are gonna be here for a long time.
Yep.
In our schools, and they work well. We keep
They're
pretty
stable,
good pulse
yeah.
on them. But like everything else, there's programming that goes into it. So even the whole, and these guys have done a great job taking that on. When a new person's hired, you have to change their name, reset their password, show who shows up when you call. I mean, there's all, it's
On a phone number,
complicated.
yeah.
Voice
Yeah,
direct,
and
voice
sync it
direct,
up, get it on, so there's a whole process for onboarding and offboarding that connects to that. But it's a great question, because I see that's happening, and then we've got the ATT thing in the news as well. So it's like, it was like Tuesday was the future of the landline, Wednesday was what happens when your Wi-Fi goes, and don't you wish you had a landline? So, but I think for here, especially with our 911 system running through the phone, so our system is set so when you pick up a phone, it actually tells immediately where it's coming from. And we actually, the administrative team and the police and everyone get, I will say the administrative team gets an update on our phones that, Rich called 911 from room 211. And so it's a pretty important system, I would think, right now to not, so for the foreseeable future, I think it's here.
Good. Thank you.
Got a couple more slides.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Dave's been great. I appreciate his help and the help of the members of the team. And this all kind of like started with, as the pandemic kind of shifted a lot of things, like centralized a lot of things. And, maybe eventually I'll show you the kind of the data ecosystem that kind of runs in the background of this, just in terms of all the information of people as they kind of come and go out, that kind of also is in the background of this, because that's a whole other piece of support. Just to kind of round things up, we are in the middle of MCAS season. We do a tremendous amount of support also for CBT MCAS. So, we provide teachers for available webinars, teachers and administrators for available webinars, account checks, who's going to be administrating tests, uploads and, of students who have special needs for specific testing accommodations. We confirm the device functions for the occurring test with the browser and with the network. So we're currently at the stage where we've had one small infrastructure test at one of the elementary schools, but we continue to work across the schools as they do infrastructure testing for MCAS each year, setting up the sites, creating fake tickets, letting students kind of experience the test, and also getting teachers kind of ready to administer a test themselves, and support that work across the school. So just wanted, talking about the help desk, also put that in place. That's another big kind of chunk that team works a lot on and does a great job with. And just to kind of provide on the last slide, here are links to some of the most recent newsletters. And I appreciate the time speaking with you tonight, and open to any questions additionally you might have.
How many people have registered for the webinar so far?
Well, I have to put it out still.
Oh, you haven't put it
Yeah,
out,
this
okay.
is like the first push.
I'm just curious how many people go to those things. I mean,
Competing with a school committee meeting.
was that?
It's competing with a school.
I was gonna say, is that about the same?
I'll have to do it ahead of time. Dinner,
Yeah. Okay.
so.
No, I asked mine during the presentation. Anybody else have
No,
questions?
I'm good, thank you.
No, we really
Thank you.
appreciate the update, and
Oh, thank you.
I don't know a lot about technology. I'm not the expert that Jeff and Rich might be, but I'm very interested in hearing it, so thank you guys.
No, thank you.
Yes, Dr.
If I
Daly?
could, just to thank Dr. Downs for, he mentioned in there that he is part of some of the committees at the state and
Yeah.
national levels. We're absolutely leading the way in a lot of these areas. And Dr. Downs signs up, he's even chairing one of the groups.
Yeah.
So we're leading, we're trying things out, we're giving feedback, we're helping to shape everything from digital learning walkthroughs for classrooms and what kids should be experiencing when they come to a school, to the data privacy. I mean, I'm very confident that we're leading the way with a lot of this stuff, which is great. So I want to thank him for those efforts in that time. So,
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We have no minutes tonight. We have budget update. We have the tuition adjustment from NEC. Dr. Daly, you want to talk about that quickly?
I do. Thank you so much. So I have, let me just share this for a moment. I've shared with you previously, there is an update to the tuition rates for the North Shore Consortium. This is based upon their large capital. They own the building. I've shared with you before that there was a need to make adjustments in order to do this through a lot of meetings. Again, I'm on the board. Through a lot of meetings with this group, we were able to process this through a tuition adjustment, which allows a lot of flexibility and the possibility of some reimbursement for these adjustments, as opposed to, let's say, just a one-time charge, which is where the conversation originated.
But does this adjust the base up going forward, or
This,
just for this year?
this adjusts the base for this upcoming year. But then this is a one-time adjustment. So it's based on the number of students we have. The cost to our district is $32,000. You can see it's definitely a much higher cost for districts that have higher numbers of students. So we talked about everything between member districts sort of splitting the cost. We talked about it being per student, and then we came up with tiers, and then we came up with, and Michael Connolly was involved in this conversation to help suggest the idea, there's also non-member districts who also benefit from the existence of this consortium. And so we also were able to get some non-member districts in at a tier. So we ended up with a tiered model. We thought that was fair because currently we have 2 students, but next year we could have 5. And so to say that, in any given year, you're only responsible for the number. But we did feel that a tier was appropriate because we have 2 and other districts have 15, 20 students. And so to try to share that out. So this was the additional assessment. We are able to consider whether we can use it and pay it with this year, with next year. And there are some reimbursement possibilities because it has been worked in through tuition. So this was sort of the best outcome of a very tricky situation where they had a cost overrun for their large capital projects in the millions of dollars over what was anticipated. So this is the opportunity for me to bring forward and just make sure this is communicated out to the group. Any
Okay.
questions?
I mean, my only thought would be, if we could pay it out of this year as opposed to next year, I would personally think that would probably be better, since we are only $2.5 million short on the budget for next year already, so.
Yeah. This is our hope, and we're trying to work through that. And we're working very closely with the state on all those reimbursement possibilities as well, so.
Would the, so for circuit breaker, it's, 75% over 4 times the average student. Would this be put equally on each student that's there right now?
Yeah.
So it'd be 16,000 for each student as opposed to,
Yeah, and I don't know that I don't know
I don't
the
know who-
exact numbers too,
yeah.
but yeah, that would be the formula. And then, again, this is why we kind of, through the finance team of NEC, worked with the state to come up with the most equitable way to do this, so. And I would support, I'll say my voice, I think that originally when collaboratives were considered, they are not eligible for MSBA process and reimbursement. There are bills out there and advocacy to support that. I would say moving forward, that's something I would support and you can consider as well. I think there's a huge advantage to having a collaborative, a huge advantage to them owning their own buildings. Those buildings are gonna need support, and for that all to come back on districts all the time, it seems like there should be another function for that to be able to go through the MSBA process. So collaboratives have changed greatly since their inception, and I think that's something to be considered. So I just wanted to put that out there as well.
thank you, and we don't need any vote on this, correct?
This is just an informational update, yep.
Staffing, we had a couple of updates in there.
Sure, I was just there. We have a few long-term substitutes. Amanda Sai is a long-term sub-paraprofessional, general kindergarten at the Bachelor. Alicia Valdez is taking on the long-term special education role at the Hood School.
Yes.
Bids and donations, Rich?
So we've got a couple, from our ever-active PTOs. I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $150 from the Little School Parents Association to help defray bus transportation costs for the grade 1 field trip to the Flint Memorial Library.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
And I move that the committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $875 from the Bachelor's Parents Organization to help defray the cost for the grade 2 field trip to, thankfully not the Flint Library, because that would be a very short trip, but to the Museum of Science.
Wonderful. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Is that it? We had the same person this time. Cindy was still collecting the minutes from last time because different people did it, so she had to identity thing. No grants, no overnight trip requests, subcommittee updates, finance planning team met February 16th. Mr. McGowan?
I don't know, it feels like we're talking about the same stuff over and over.
That's literally what I was gonna say. It's like, we have a huge budget deficit
Yeah,
and
we don't know exact numbers yet, and we're still talking about, yeah, it's, I don't know what you want to say about it.
No, I
There's-
think-
There's really nothing, we didn't move it forward very far, I guess.
I mean, I think the only consensus I would think is that the finance planning team is going to put forth a budget with 2 parts,
Right.
with or without an override.
Yep.
Finance planning team is gonna put that forward. Hopefully, the school committee will support that and support the override version of that. The select board, I think, is at least supportive of putting it before the townspeople. I don't know exactly how that's going to go. I think there's some support there. I think the finance committee also likes the idea of having both, and it seems like the finance committee would probably be in support of it as well. So I think that's kind of what we're working on, and now we just have to actually do the budget, so.
Well, and I think the concern, we talked about this earlier today, Dr. Daly, but the concern is, too, is how do we start communicating to the town and about a potential override vote and the town meeting vote, and what are the limitations about the people in that room and financial planning team, what limitations they have about advocating or communicating this about it versus, you know, who else needs to be involved, so.
That's Dale, you have something?
I just wanted to add that a few of us attended the select board meeting after our last meeting. Mr. Buckley, you spoke very well on the issues. I appreciate how you represented that for us. And I do think there may be some joint meetings scheduled in the future, is what I've heard as well. I think just for people to start getting information that way, but then I agree that there's a larger communication push that's gonna need to come to make sure everyone understands the needs.
Yeah, I believe on the March 4th, the Select Board and Finance Committee are having a joint meeting in the usual Select Board meeting slot.
Who is Finance and?
Finance Committee and Select Board.
I think that one's probably just
It's
looking at the budget
well,
for,
but that's not,
yeah, I know, I know.
that's not nothing.
yeah.
So
I think that's
it's-
just looking at the request
It's a good
from
one to
there, yeah.
follow, yeah.
Yeah. No, and again, like, yeah, I thought we had a meeting before then, but yeah, I went over the select board meeting after the last one and gave my 2 cents for 15 minutes, so.
Well,
Yeah, okay, policy subcommittee met?
yeah, we met last week, went in a bit more detail with the feedback that we got from first reading, as well as just looking through the policies. We've been taking some time this past bunch of days to review more of the detail of these policies, make some edits, some just suggestions, and then we're gonna regroup again at the end of this week and re-review the policies with suggested changes and see if we can come to a consensus before we come back to the larger committee.
Do you feel the need to bring all of them up if we don't think we need them, or do you feel comfortable just presenting the ones that you think are necessary with?
No, we haven't spoken
Yeah.
since then, so
Okay.
I'm not gonna speak out of turn, but I think we will come to a consensus about what to bring, and that may not be everything, but,
Okay.
but I don't wanna speak out of turn because we haven't spoken about it since.
Okay. Speak whatever you want, when we're in open session, so.
Sure.
um,
Well, I don't wanna speak for anybody else, I'm
Okay.
gonna put it that way.
That's fine. Okay, subcommittee, schedule, finance planning team's meeting, is it this Friday? Or
Yeah,
this
I think
Thursday?
There may be another date that I wasn't aware of.
I think it got moved, I think this Thursday we're meeting.
Yeah.
Is it Thursday morning, I believe
It
we're
is
meeting?
Thursday, Yep.
Yeah.
And I will note on that one, we've moved to in person on those, which I do think is helpful, honestly. And so, yeah, usually around this time of the year, we're meeting once every 2 or 3 weeks. I think we're probably gonna be meeting once every week, or maybe at 2 at the most, so. Policy subcommittees meeting March 1st and March 12th, both at 1 o'clock. Athletic subcommittee, March 5th at noon. Fine arts subcommittee, March 5th at 3:15. No administrative report or correspondence. Future business, we have meetings on March 11th, March 25th, at 6:30. April 8th, we have a budget workshop hearing, at 5 o'clock. And then later on at 6:30, we have a budget hearing.
If I could,
Yes,
so the Hood School meeting that was in March, I believe we're gonna move that to April 22nd, which was our budget vote. We have done that in a different location in the past. I think it's important to have the hearing here.
Mhm.
But the concern that I realized, Junetown meeting now is on the 10th.
yeah.
We usually have done a meeting before that at 5. I think to try to fit a school presentation in that short window wouldn't work. So we're gonna try for the April 22nd meeting, and that would be at the Hood. So just as an update.
The only question I have on that is, since we are still using the OWL and we're talking about deep cuts to a budget, will we be able to live broadcast
Yep.
at April 22nd? Because I know NORCAM is not live typically at the Hood, correct? They are not live at the Hood, so it would only be our Google OWL.
Right, and I do think,
That's
I would hope that the hearing on the 8th more would come out
Right.
in the public sessions. So
Oh,
you would be able to be live on that, yep.
okay. Anything else? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to go to executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations with NREA, and then we will adjourn from the executive session.
Yeah, so I moved that the committee vote to enter into executive session and to not return to open session in order to discuss collective collective bargaining strategy with the North Reading Education Association, as having the discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the public body's negotiating position and bargaining position.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Rich?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Noel?
Aye.
Diana? I'm an aye as well, passes 5-0. Thank you very much.